Good afternoon. Another show, Art Expressions. The rain's a couple hours off, and I'm sitting here with a friend of mine, Dan Bérubé, and he owns Jupiter Hall, and him and his wife have made quite a showing in Manchester. They have not only art, but they have music, they have dancing, they have different art forms, they have different venues. And I think that's very interesting and much needed. And I look at it when I go in and I see people singing, and I missed one of those concerts, but I'm going to be there at the Jazz Festival because I love jazz, and I'm definitely going to come up with the money to go in and see it at the tightwad that I usually am. But I'm very happy to have Dan on my show. My next show after this, I'm going to have his wife Katie, and we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time right now. So Dan, tell us how Jupiter Hall came to be. Was it a dream? Was it something that you and Katie had been planning or thinking about for a long time, and you finally did it? Or?
Well, first off, hello everyone. I'm always happy to be on here with Anthony. And Anthony, my favorite question to ask you is, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
You're doing okay?
Yes.
I hear you're doing a lot of murals in the city.
Yes, I just finished my 6th mural, and actually 8 altogether with my group, Friends of Art, FOA. And we went through Neighbor Works, and people loved it. And it's not, I thought at first they were going to get tagged, and I was hesitant when I found out where we were going to do the murals. The only sour thing about the whole episode of the murals was the fact that I saw 2 people overdose. I saw one person try and rob another. I saw another guy shooting up with a needle, which kind of stuck in my head. I was going back. I was doing the murals at 222 Cedar Street behind Hope Tabernacle Church, and I went back to my car to get some paint, and the flash light goes off on the left side of my eye, and I look, and I see this guy in there holding a needle up, and he's going like this, trying to knock the air out of it or whatever they do, and I didn't know what to do. Well, so when I came back, the guy came up, and he said, well, what you saw me do was medicine because I have a drug problem, and what I was doing was shooting up my medicine that's prescribed. And I said, really? And he said, yes. And then he turns and he looks at the artwork, and he stares at me and then walks down the alley. And the good thing about all of that being down there is that Erica Brooks from Neighbor Works gave my group FOA the chance to do these murals, and to this day they're months old, not one tag. Nobody has destroyed them like they used to do 5-10 years ago. I mean, anything that was out, they always had to destroy it. So it got my confidence up, and it got to the point where after I finished the first 3, I had 5 artists, 2 at Dollar Deluxe and 3 at Two Guys Market on Union and Central. And the good thing about that was the Bean Foundation came by and wanted to talk to Debbie and I, Debbie Curtin, that's the lady I work with and have for years, about the murals. So we had a little conversation and had our pictures taken, and they are considering giving money to Neighbor Works. They were so impressed with all the murals. Erica took them around and gave them a little tour. And this makes me feel really good because for years I have been fighting for designated areas, and the fact that I'm an artist myself, I always push art. No matter who gets the job, who does the mural, the artist, I want to see it, and I push it. I also sit on the art commission, and I'm fighting for designated areas, and I'm also fighting for the MAA gallery. And so far so good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that after everything is over that we're going to get these things, but they're worth fighting for. I've got too many years' experience on the street working with kids in Litchfield Lane to just let this go. So I'm going to stand fast, steadfast, and keep fighting so that we have more
So-
art in the city.
The people that were injecting, they were near the murals.
Right.
But can you imagine if those, instead of what needles they were holding paintbrushes?
Right.
When I parked outside the studio here on Elm Street, right surrounding my vehicle were a series of homeless people, all sitting or sleeping, or congregating on the sidewalk. And 3 of them were doing art. They were drawing and
Right.
whatnot. And there's an imbalance in the city with art and with our people, with our community. We need to find a way to work on that. That's just some thought to give, because we can make this work. And we need to work together to make that happen.
Right.
I like your idea of designated areas. And I would love to find ways for conversations with our homeless and with those people on the street. I would love to find a way to empower them to do a mural themselves.
There you go.
That would be an amazing thing. And that they are woven into the fabric of our city.
Right.
And, we have everyone together. There's diversity in that, for whatever reason, and we can get into that whole conversation, but homelessness and the mentally ill and those afflicted with addiction and life changes are part of that diversity and fabric. We have to find a way to positively and I don't want to say fix, but find a way to enable them to change things. We are all change makers. You asked me about Jupiter Hall. Katie and I started Jupiter Hall because we wanted to be change makers. Mm-hmm. We felt that what we could do to the city or for the city on our own as local individuals and leaders in our own right, because we are local people who care, to put our own skin in the game and our own money and finances in the game, our passion and the strengths that we feel we can bring when we all work together. I really believe and confidently believe we can make this work. We all need to sit in a room and find ways to have the conversation so that we can all have a voice and that we can acknowledge and move forward. And that's why we do Jupiter Hall. There's really no other reason why, because I'm big, and my whole life has been about collaboration and working with other people and achieving milestones that don't exist, and then building upon those as steps to moving forward. The biggest thing that I want people to think about, and with what we do at Jupiter Hall, is how can we change the mindset or foster a mindset in our city that incorporates the use of arts and culture as a way to solve our issues that we have in the city. We can do this. And I feel that Jupiter Hall is one of the vehicles and tools, vessels, venues, spaces, third spaces, safe spaces that can be used to make this happen. We will continue to do this very confidently in working with like-minded businesses who have the same shared vision that arts and culture can revitalize and bring more people downtown. It's not about having an ego. It's not about pet projects. It's about what's best for our city. Not for one part of the city, for our city.
Right.
And, I would suggest that we take a breath, look at each other, look with each other, and see what we can do. Because there's a lot of great things happening in the city with artists, and with artists that help us to lead in our thinking, our dynamic thinking of how do we change things, how do we build upon things, and for us at our venue, Jupiter Hall, bringing different communities together, young and old, and trying different things. We spent our first year trying different things. I bet you whoever saw us was wondering, what the heck are these guys doing?
Yeah.
But we know what we're doing, and we're not going to stray from that. We're going through a difficult time now in our building, the Oddfellows building on Hanover Street, because, rest his soul, our landlord just passed away. And we're dealing with, and he was Mo LaRue, he was such a lover of the arts. He loved what has been going on in the building. And I want to honor that. We want to honor that. And we want to find a way to keep that going as a special part of the city that can be used. There's so much talk now of, let's do co-ops, let's work together, let's find different ways. We can all do this. There's room for everyone.
Right.
And one thing that we will do and focus on is the people within our building. The first and foremost, we're going to celebrate his life through art, through performance and song. Some of the people within the building and his friends. And that I think will be, think about when I was growing up, we would do these things. We would get together and families get together and you don't have to agree with each other, but you find ways of working together. And for a business that we do, I really want other businesses, leaders in the city, to just really take a minute and think of how we can work together. It's very important.
You just gave me an idea when you mentioned the homeless out on the sidewalk. I've seen 2 or 3 artists out there, and you brought up the idea that possibly, get them involved in a mural project. And I think it's a stupendous idea. It's what Eagle Eyes did back in 2006. We took what was known and called taggers. These are kids that destroy property, even though some of their artwork, some were good with a spray can. But the bad thing about that was there was no permission, and it was on private property, and it became kind of a game with a lot of them. But I see it now. If we could get these people that are on the street with their cigar boxes, looking for money, and doing the drawing, because I've viewed their art. I can't help it. I'm like a little spy plane coming in, and I go down the street and I'm seeing somebody do some sketch, and they're not playing around. Some of these people have talent. So
this is a talent for them.
Right.
This is their way of figuring out what's happening to them.
Right.
Their normal everyday lives. It's journaling. It's putting down on paper through art and words what's happening to me. How can I fix things? And this can start small. We're not looking for biting the whale, but looking for small victories that can lead and provide examples to other people who may be in the same position to think about how can I use my innate talents to help myself.
Right.
And it might empower them to think about, I'm going to go check this group out because they're very supportive. Right. I'm going to work with this team of artists. I'm going to find a way to work with other organizations in the city that can help me in return to grow and get to the next level. Parks. There's no reason why we can't have art in the parks. Can you imagine? I'll firmly reiterate that for us to succeed as a city with building community through art, we have to start from the ground up, not from the top down. Other cities like Seattle, their arts commission, their offices already know this. We need to look to other cities and find a way of working through that. Not just, networking through groups within our city, but in other cities, and for cities that are willing to share their information, because we all want to succeed.
Right.
There's no reason we can't.
I think of the city of Philadelphia, which boasts, and rightly so, they have over 2,000 murals in that city alone, 2,000 plus. And some of these people were, like Dan said, they were homeless. Some people were drug addicts. Some people were alcoholics.
Misguided.
Right.
Under the wrong influences.
Right. But they joined with this group, and this lady named Jane Golden started these mural programs, and it took like 2.5 years. And by the third year, they'd already had over 100 murals, and they used people that were sleeping in the parks. And when the police would investigate some of these people, they would find out that they had been through a divorce or they had a drug problem, and they just wanted to get away from society. And they had one guy that he was constantly drunk, and the police knew him by name and sight, so they basically left him alone. He didn't bother anybody. He would just lay down in the parks. But somebody said something to him, and he got sober. And when they went and looked at his briefcase that he used to carry around, there were sketches in there, and watercolor sketches that he had done of people walking by him while he was in the park. And they put him in these mural programs, and he's sober as far as I know now. But the point is, like Dan said, these people that are on the street, they need help. And if you can get them to a point where you can say to them, look, we have a mural project, you have talent, let's work together and see what you think.
We have this cultural project, identifying each other through language, through music, through the heritage. We can, as a city, stand together with everyone and be proud of who we are. We can't look the other way. We can't put a blanket over it.
That's true.
We need to think differently and have a mindset that is preparing us for the future. Our 10 years down the line, where do we want to stand?
Right.
How proud do we want to be as a city? I hope people get to see this. I really would love to see this type of conversation starting. There's been talk about, people don't come into downtown Manchester anymore. I can tell you that my business, Jupiter Hall, has been affected by that.
Right. Well, I know for a fact that some of my older friends that live here in Manchester, they're afraid to come downtown, especially at night. They used to come down and go to the restaurants every Friday and Saturday night. And a lot of these people tell me they don't want to anymore because they're afraid. They see so many homeless people, and they can't quite understand why there's so many of them. But they're afraid to go downtown. They're afraid because they're walking. They're not.
I applaud the homeless for being visible to the point that they can be and still feel good about themselves, because it's a problem that we need to address. We can't tuck it away, put it in a jar and close that jar and walk away from it. We are a city that we need to be together. We need to figure this out together. Both sides, everyone. Everyone has something to contribute, and everyone can participate in a way that makes them feel better about them, that adds a little things to their daily lives. Why aren't we focusing on this?
I don't know.
We can. And we're going to do it through, at least in our small way, we're going to do it. We've been doing it through Jupiter Hall. I love the people that we work with, artists, people who come and visit, people who want to get involved in one way or another, just even hold a bridal shower or whatnot. They like the experience of being in the hall. Can you imagine if we can amplify that through the city?
It'd be fantastic.
Can you imagine the streets having more murals on the buildings.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine each street having some mural on it that talks about its history? How amazing could that be?
There you go.
And through the eyes of the young people who see it and what their interpretation of it and what they want to see in the future. I don't know if you were expecting to talk about this type of stuff, but I'm always willing to be a resource for hope and just let's level the playing field. Let's move forward,
I've said art is a therapy, and I've had a number of people on the show that say the same thing, that if we could get the interest up and we could get some of these kids to work with us, like years ago when we worked with Eagle Eyes. Art is a therapy. It does help people, but there are other problems that come with these homeless people. And I agree with Dan that somehow, some way, we've got to work on this, because this is the largest city in the state. It's got everything everybody needs. It just seems that somehow in the last couple of years things have come unraveled, so we're seeing more people on the street. I can't really put my finger on why. I know some of them are obviously drug addicts and alcoholics, or a combination thereof, but there's got to be a gateway for everybody to meet and say, we're going to do this, stick together and get it done.
The labels are tough.
Yeah.
Drug addict, homeless, mentally ill.
They're big words.
These are people. These are people that are struggling. They're struggling to identify themselves in this city. They're struggling to identify the success that they can enjoy. They're struggling to stay together as a family, to have a house, to work. And I'm so confident that we can make this happen. And I'm hoping that this can rub off on some people in one way or another, so that even just a little step forward, we can solve some of the issues that happen. The labels are tough, but the answers can be and will be not only discovered, but let's implement them. Let's work together. Let's put up our sleeves. Let's find ways of all the services to work together. Who can offer this? Offer their different strengths as a service and organization. Combine it with arts and culture. And with what the city offers, and then allow in return to reap the benefits of individuals who grow and add to the daily experience of living here. That's what we want. We don't, there's nothing too difficult about this.
Well,
yes, the cost of money, the cost of putting aside differences, I understand all that.
yeah.
But what's stopping us from doing that?
I think somehow you got to get the point across, the message across, which we're trying to do here today, and actually get a group of people and work on it. And I don't think it's going to be done in 5 days or 20 days. It may not be done within a year, but if you form a committee or get a group of people that really care, you can work miracles.
I don't know if it needs to be a committee. I think it needs to be a group of dedicated people who have a way of contributing
Right.
through their own strengths, and that are empowered by what the city can offer and through what the organizations can offer. In like-minded businesses, there are so many ways that we can do events here that bring people together.
Right.
A committee tends to bury things, and we don't want to do that.
Well, I use the word committee because when I think of that, I could say a commission or I could say a group of people. The word committee popped in my mouth because I'm thinking it's a group of people that stick together, work together. You could call them a committee, you could call them a group, you could call them FOA, you could call them MAA.
You could call them friends.
Yes, friends, people that get together. But it's got to be done. It's either that or we sit and watch it get worse year after year.
And it's so easy to do that.
Right.
And we don't need to do that.
Because people feel helpless
love
sometimes.
Manchester. I love
Well, you grew
the
up
people.
here,
I
right?
grew up here, was born here. I love the people. Yes, right now we're not getting the business we'd like to, because in part people aren't coming downtown, or there's not enough that the city, the downtown can offer. But it's also not just about the downtown. But when it comes to downtown, the downtown should show leadership, and we're doing our part, both Katie and I, to add to that. And we want to work with others who want to continue to do that.
I mean, you couldn't ask for a better menu at Jupiter Hall. I mean, you've got art, you've got dancing, you've got singing. I could go on and on. There's so much going on there, and it's very versatile, and that's what I like. Plus, you've stepped a little bit outside, saying, it's all art. Well, it's art plus, and that's what I like about it. I like the acting.
Art
That's
is very
something.
personal to people,
Right.
almost like a religion. But everyone can identify with creativeness and creativity and inspiration. What can really add to open the conversation, to talk about connectivity and what makes this city strong.
Right.
And what are we waiting for? I love some of the things that are happening here. The murals. I want Manchester to be known as a city of murals.
Right.
There's no reason why it can't be, and it's growing towards that.
He's trying to compete with Philadelphia. But you know what? I back him on that, because I would like to see a lot more murals. Not only because I'm a muralist, but there's a lot of talented people in this city. And I think a lot of them go through Dan and Katie's door all the time.
It comes to story. That's
Right.
the other reason why we opened Jupiter Hall, was to share story.
Right.
Murals are all about storytelling, universal, and everyone could get something different out of it. And that connectivity can happen throughout the city. We can do this. It's paint, resources, walls, spaces.
Right.
I'd love to see it be also lighted murals, get into
Digital kind of things.
Yeah.
There's a guy.
The city is a city of innovation. We can figure this out.
There are artists. I've seen them on Facebook, on the internet, where they call them digital murals, where they're lit up at night. They turn on, and one even had one where he had something fixed on so that the murals would change color every couple minutes. It would be the same scene, but it would change the scene. It's almost like imagining light, daytime and nighttime and in between. But that's fantastic. Something that visually attracts you, that's beautiful and has a lot of color. I mean, digital art is not new, and I'm sure that it's going to continue to be a big thing. But there's nothing better than opening up a can of paint with a brush and taking a pencil like I do, sketch it in, sit back, look at it for a second, and jump on it. We've got talented artists, and we've got Keith Trahan, we've got James Chase is working on something.
We have schools here that produce creative minds, that there's plenty of spaces that can be done. You talked about Litchfield Lane and people owning it. I just want to say, with the parks, starting from the ground up, we can own it through shared ownership of the city through this art and whatnot. We can talk about that part 2 next week.
Part 2. Dan and Katie will be back, hopefully November the 5th, I think. I hope. They'll be on our next show, because they've actually done something instead of just talking about it. And that I met Dan 4 years ago, you and Katie,
2015.
and 2015. So that's 4 years ago, and we're still here. So I will see you in 2 weeks with part 2, and thank you, Dan, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.